Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's unhinged Environment and Climate Change Minister Stephen Guilbeault did something Friday that has probably never happened in the relatively civil history of Canada. A minister of the Crown crashed the convention of the official opposition. Guilbeault is not only a flake, he's a boor. And, if you accept the word of a former Liberal MP that I recently interviewed, he's also a Marxist and a Manchurian candidate. And this narcissistic man who is destroying Canada with environmental policies that are designed to stop ordinary citizens from driving their cars or heating their homes, was just after the one thing he craves even more than complete economic collapse: attention. He got plenty of that in a strained and embarrassing news conference where a lot of independent media let loose on Guilbeault with the sort of questions he doesn't often get in Ottawa. When asked to connect the climate change dots and demonstrate how any of his harebrained schemes were actually working, the feeble minister stuttered and stammered, clearly unprepared for anything but the usual softball questions from a compliant press corps. He could only attack Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre as a climate change denier, so there. Guilbeault attracted some attention. And that's all his political life is really about. As a former activist with Greenpeace, an organization often accused of aiding and abetting the eco-terrorism of spiking trees, police repeatedly arrested Guilbeault for various environmental stunts, including attempting to climb Toronto's CN Tower, once the tallest freestanding structure in the world. He makes outrageous claims without a shred of evidence that climate change is responsible for all the wildfires that have burned across Canada this summer. He cannot explain why those fires largely stop at the Canada-US border if climate change is a universal phenomenon and not unique for every country on Earth. Does arson have anything to do with the blazes? There are a raft of folks up on charges for lighting these fires, including a Montreal man who was just accused of starting an inferno in northern Quebec. But Guilbeault cannot tell you why Trudeau's carbon tax of about 60 cents per litre of gas has apparently done nothing to arrest climate change, even though that's what this enormous levy was supposed to do, as a tax on pollution, as the Liberals like to describe it. Even if Guilbeault succeeds in reducing Canada to a new Stone Age, it will have practically no effect at all on climate change and won't stop the catastrophe that jet-setting climate hypocrites like former Vice President Al Gore and climate czar John Kerry tell you is on the horizon. China produces 33% of the greenhouse gases in the world today. And it is incessantly building more coal-fired power plants, surging ahead with more than 50 gigawatts of new coal power in the first half of 2023, with another 106 gigawatts on the way. Canada produces less than 1.5% of greenhouse gases. That's a pretty negligible carbon footprint. So most Canadians might freeze in the winter and never think about flying to warmer climes because all the aircraft are grounded, and they will never receive any applause for solving the climate change crisis. And speaking of China, Guilbeault is just back from a trip to bloody Beijing, where, from August 26 to 31st, he liaised with an environmental group that is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. Guilbeault serves as executive vice chairperson at the organization in question, the China Council for International Cooperation on Environment and Development. China, of course, is the same basic dictatorship that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau once said he most admired. Guilbeault had no business paying respect to China and should not be sitting on a communist Chinese board when Beijing is actively interfering in Canadian elections and continues to intimidate and harass Chinese dissidents living in Canada. Dan McTeague is the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy and might be described as an old-school Liberal. He was a Liberal member of Parliament in the Greater Toronto Area for 18 years. He has no time for Trudeau and nothing but contempt for Guilbeault. I recently interviewed McTeague about how Guilbeault lied about there being such a thing as subsidies for Canada's oil and gas industry. But McTeague had a lot more to say about Guilbeault and his cancerous policies. He is a Manchurian candidate, and for people who don't understand the expression, I'm not talking about the movie. I'm referring to somebody who can be used as a useful idiot by another country to come out and spout these things off, McTeague said. He is a Marxist, and there's no doubt from his comments and his reputation, and anybody who's done a bit of research on this man will come quickly to this conclusion. He's the last person we should have in Parliament, much less as a minister. He is jetting off to another country, where I come from in my generation of Liberals, that would be considered seditious and potentially treasonous. McTeague was talking about Guilbeault jetting off to China. Perhaps he should have stayed there to see just how much his climate change hysteria would be embraced by China. But as he crashed the Tory convention, he stuck to his silly talking points, apparently completely unaware of his own incompetence and intransigence. And when the Trudeau ship goes down, there will be no lifeboats available for a failed minister like this.